And last but never least, a very, very good friend who is so kind of accepting anything that gets thrown at him, Adam Czarnecki, who is a CHRP, a recipient of the HRIA Award of Excellence. Round of applause, please, round of applause. He's a member of a senior management team of a heavy-duty truck dealership group in Alberta. Understand that Adam has driven how long this morning to come here? 25 kilometers? Oh, okay. You didn't come from Grand Prairie. Okay. He is an HR instructor at the University of Calgary, Mount Royal University, and the chair of the Advanced HR Curriculum Committee at MRU. You will find him on the speakers circuit, numerous webinars, conferences, workshop, and he's a technology columnist for HRIA Quarterly Magazine, Human Capital. You will understand why when you see his presentation. It is going to keep us on our toes.
Thank you. If everyone can lower their standards right now, it'll be a lot more enjoyable. I work for a wonderful organization. I really do, Great West Kenworth. And each year that we do an employee survey, the number one reason that people like working for us is the people. And you'll see once I give my presentation why that's important. Nicole asked me to talk about development, retention, and attraction. She asked me to cover about 120 hours worth of course material in about 30 minutes. And I said 45. And then by the way, can you also add in what managers are also looking for during this process? So there's a lot of information here that I'm going to throw at you. Luckily for you, I am a very lazy individual. So I did the least amount of effort that I could possibly do. But I'd like to share my laziness with you. So I have actually provided you with a sort of a cheat sheet that you don't have to take notes. All you have to do is just enjoy the presentation. And my email's on here as well. So if there's something in addition to that you want to ask, fire off an email to me. I'll get back to you within 24 hours or so. Usually in the evening, I work from 10 p.m. to about midnight after my regular job. So when Nicole asked me to do attraction, development, and retention, she was dating herself because we don't call that stuff anymore. What we call it is recruitment, selection, orientation, training, motivation, and engagement. So we're going to talk about best practices on those 6 items. The problem about creating strategies for those 3 things is ultimately if whatever your company culture is, whatever strategy, whatever plan you have in place, it's going to eat it for lunch. It's no matter how much planning you do, if the people that are there are not willing to change, are not willing to try the strategy that the old way is the best way, you're going to really suffer. And so you can plan and plan and plan. However, if your organization is not willing to change, all that planning is going to be a frustrating, worthless activity, and you're just going to go back to the old ways. So what I've prepared here is about the best practices on what we can do with attraction, development, and retention. However, although I'm going to give you awesome information, it's not going to work if your organization is not willing to change or try these strategies, okay? So, the first thing on recruitment, it's the job posting. It used to be that you would say, look at this wonderful job that I have, and somebody else would say, and then there would be 200, 300 people for that position, and then you could choose who you want for that position, and you would choose from quality candidates. That's not what happens in Alberta. And other provinces don't really understand that we don't get to choose from 100, 200, 300 quality candidates. We get to choose from 2, 3 if we're lucky, 4 bonus, right? And so how you do your job posting is very important. It's a two-way communication because not only are you supposed to say, hey, look, I have this job, you also have to say, look at what a wonderful company we have. You actually want to come work for us. And so in your job posting, you got to have a very good job title. It can't be engineering level 1, right? Because engineering level 1 might mean something very specific to your organization, but it might not mean anything to somebody else. So make sure that you're using a generic job title that people use in the industry and that people understand. Keywords that you know that people are looking for my industry, job stability is very important. So guess what I put in my job ads? Great job stability, right? Pictures. Wouldn't it be great that you know where you would be working, what kind of environment? Take a few pictures of your office, of the environment that they're going to be working. Because if they have a choice between applying for 2 jobs, and one shows them exactly where they're going to be working. Now, I'm not saying, take the picture of the office, and here's the computer you're going to be working on, and here's the telephone, right? But an overall picture of the organization. Kijiji is great for this, right? But also on your job posting, if you have a company website, your company website should allow pictures on it. So post some pictures of the environment they're going to be working on. Why your company is great, where it's located. People actually choose, I will not hire anyone who works in the Northwest because it takes about an hour and a half each day to go through Crowchild to get to my company. And any person that we've ever hired from the Northwest works for us for about 6 months. I have actual matrix to show this, right? Because yes, I want a job, and then as soon as they get a job, guess what? They're looking for a job closer to home. Because spending 3 hours each day commuting back and forth is not fun. Detailed position, the day-to-day working, the must-haves and the nice-haves. Be genuine and clear. Don't do a cookie-cutter job posting. Start each job posting from scratch. I know it's easier, but if you come across more genuine, you'll have an easier time. Regular job tasks that they're not going to do, not the great things that they might do once a month, once a year, but the day-to-day, a realistic job preview of them. Jump into action, apply now, put an end date, even though you might not have one, because a person might come across and go, okay, I'll apply to that position next week, but if you put, hey, we're closing this position next week, they might act on it right away. And make it easy to apply. Okay, you can have a difficult selection process, but make it easy for people to apply. Because the number one reason why people don't apply, how many of you have applied and it says, create this profile with the next 37 questions? And you go, all right, you know what, I'm gonna, when I have a little bit more time, I'm gonna apply, and you never apply. So make sure you make it easy to apply, whether it's just sending a resume, one click to apply, linking in through your LinkedIn account, whatever it may be, but make it easy to apply. Still, the number one source that people get jobs is friends and family. And I'm actually, and networking. The amount of a referral bonus that you give does not increase the amount of people that you're going to get. So if you're giving a $500 bonus or a $2,000 bonus, it's not going to get more people through the door. Okay, all you're doing is you're just paying more. So it's just a, hey, thanks so much for referring to us, but whether you have a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 bonus, that's not going to bring in more people. If you know a person you're going to recommend, if you like your company, you're going to recommend your company regardless whether there's a $500, $1,000 job referral. So just do a nominal fee, but don't spend $2,000, $3,000 because it's not going to get you a return on investment. Then personal initiative, a person going in, walking in, them being recruited by employer, employment centers, recruitment agencies. Now, are there any recruitment agencies here? Good, so I can talk badly about them. All right.
They'll watch the video later.
So, some people, my favorite's like, you know what? A job recruiter called me last week. He was very interested in me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a job next week, right? Unless you have great specific skills that people want, a recruitment agency is great. But don't rely on a recruitment. If you have a sort of a blah resume that doesn't make you special, that you're a dime a dozen, a recruitment agency is not going to actively look for work for you. That's where that personal initiative goes in. On campus and internet is still, applying online, but if you continue to apply online and you get no results, chances are your resume is bad. If you apply online and you get interviews, but you never get hired, chances are your interview skills are terrible, right? But you can't rely on a single source. You can't just take I only accept online applications, I don't take faxes, I don't take walk-ins. You have to take multiple sources in order to, because some great individuals are not tech savvy. So why are you punishing people that are not tech savvy for positions that might not require them to be tech savvy? Resumes. When you're looking at resumes, what is the number one fallacy of resumes? By the way, I give you a hint. It's not a trick question. What's the number one fallacy? This is the interaction part of the presentation. So I can check it off my box. Done?
Are you trying to lead us to dates?
Dates. There you go. Dates. Okay? Dates is the number one fallacy. Usually what ends up happening is a person who has 3 jobs merges 2 jobs together, overlapping to make it look like they were in 2 jobs for a longer period of time. So when you're doing reference checks and that sort of thing, it's very important that you actually, most companies, I don't give out references, whatever. There hasn't been a single company yet to be sued for giving a bad, honest reference, okay? It's a scare tactic that people have gone in. If you're not giving false information and you can back up the information that they weren't on time, and you have backup information that they weren't on time, it's okay to give a bad reference. And the laws have changed that if they're putting their employer on their resume, that gives you permission to call that employer, okay? So, dates are the number one. It's very easy to check. My other favorite is self-employed. I'm a consultant. Any consultants here? I was a consultant for 5 years, never had a single client, but I was a consultant for 5 years, self-employed, right? And so one of the things that people try to hide in resumes is also self-employment. And an easy thing to check as well, can you give me the number of your company, whatever it may be, but check the resume. Because we get so lazy about, if a person's lying about their resume, chances are they're not an honest person. So it's a really easy way to check whether what they have said on their resume matches. And if it doesn't, it's an easy what you have mentioned in your resume doesn't jive in the reference checks that we've done. So check, I truly have a hard time believing in reference checks, but an easy way is always checking the resume. Right? Whether they had the people skills, whether they were able to do their job, they're going to say yes, 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 but how accurate is their resume to their actual work history? So what do managers want? Stop telling people to do a functional resume. No, everyone hates a functional resume, right? We want to know where did you work last, how long you were there for, and what duties you did in that job. We don't care what you did 25 years ago. Okay, chances are you're not very good at those skills you did 25 years ago. We want to know what you've done recently. Whether your job matches the experience. So every resume that you put in has to be customized to the position you're applying for. You can't, your general resume is to give to your friends and peers and colleagues to serve, pass out. But if you're applying for a position, it has to be customized to the keywords on that job posting. Most recent experience is important, solid work history. If you're going 9 months, 9 months, 9 months, 9 months, 9 months, guess what the chances are you're going to be in my organization? 9 months, right? Progression. So if you've done the same, I always pick on receptionists. I got nothing against receptionists. It's just usually the entry-level position for each organization. If you've been a receptionist for 2 years for the last 10 years in 5 organizations, that doesn't show me any progression. That shows me that you either just do the job that you've been hired to do and nothing else, or that you have no skills or want to progress further down the line. So how you're progressing within your resume is also important. Nice, simple, and easy to read. Do not tell me all the wonderful things that you can do, including underwater basket weaving, which is a tough skill. However, if I'm not hiring for an underwater basket weaver or wanting somebody who has that skill, don't put it in your resume. Relevant hobbies, interests, and volunteerism. It can hurt you if you, so for example, I'm a collector of guns. I have over 150 guns in my collection. Would you feel comfortable hiring that individual? Right? So being very careful what kind of, one of my favorite skills was about 10 years ago, I got a resume that said skills, Nintendo 64, Xbox. It wasn't even current consoles. This was like retro, right? And my favorite is, if you're applying for a job, take your resume and fold it in half. If you can still get the job with a half a resume, you got a good resume. If you can't, chances are you're going to be overlooked, because recruiters spend about 3 to 10 seconds looking at a resume, and if it's not catching their eye on the first half, chances are you're going to be dismissed. How much time do I have? What's?
Keep going.
No, I understand. I actually, is it 11:35? 11:35. Cover letters. 70% of people don't care about cover letters because we're spending 3 to 10 seconds looking at a resume. However, there's a 30% population that really care. Okay? So by not submitting a cover letter, you're only applying to about 70% of the positions because there's that 30% that really care. So throw in cover letters. However, with your cover letter, there should be a hook. There should be a hook of why you know that person, or something that you know about the company that isn't common knowledge, that you know somebody in an organization, or you fill a specific need that you know that the organization needs. That's how you get the hook. The whole, I saw your job out at Kijiji, I think I'm perfect for this position because blah, 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 blah. Thank you for consideration. It's going to be, but if you're saying, hey, I know Bob from accounting, he recommended that I apply because I hear that you're looking for a new project manager in Fort McMurray, I think I'm a great fit. That's going to catch somebody's eye. In your company, you really should have open communication about the application process. This is very easy to do. How many of you use Outlook as your source of sort of email back and forth? The majority. You can do auto replies. Right? You can do an auto reply. What I ask is anyone that applies for my organization, put the job number in the subject line. And I have a rule that says if there's a number in the subject line, reply with thank you very much for applying. There is no need to call me to check if I've received your resume. I have received your resume, because what ends up happening, people send in their resume and goes into a void. No idea if it was received, no idea if somebody's looking at it. And so I have an actual reply, thank you very much. We will be looking at your resume within the next 2 weeks. If you don't get a call back within the next 3 weeks, I'm sorry you haven't gotten past the recruitment process. Send rejection letters, okay? Treat your candidates as customers, because you never know, they might be a customer in the future, or they might reapply. And if you treated them badly the first time they ever apply as a candidate, chances are when they have the skills that you're looking for, they're not going to be looking for you as another employer. So treat them as you would your best customers. And so, hello, Billy. Thank you for your interest in the mechanics position at our company. We have reviewed your application. Unfortunately, you are not the right fit for the position at this time. So sorry for the disappointing news. Best of luck in your job search. Okay? That's all it is.
Because you could get potentially 200-300 applications for one job. Are you saying to send out?
Control FR, enter. Control FR, enter. Control FR, enter. Control FR, enter. Yes. Right? I am. I make it my mission to reject every single person that applies to my organization. Hold on, that didn't sound right. You can put checks and balances in place. Ask, so once you've picked a person, before they even come into the interview, do a self-assessment. And what I like to do is for individuals to do a self-assessment on the job posting. So the things that you're looking for, how would you rate yourself from A to B on task A, task B, task C? Let them do a self-assessment. This will help you in the probationary period. This will help, if somebody is a pro and says, I'm awesome at everything, you might be a little bit wary if they think they're awesome at everything. If they're a real individual that understands their own limitations, they might be somewhere in the middle. But if you get a superstar that says, I am awesome at everything, that might be a red flag for you. Don't be afraid to do screening phone interviews, right? Why are you asking them to come in right away? Ask 5 key questions, and the same key questions to all the people that you're going to bring in, so you're able to actually judge them on the same questions. Video interviews are starting to become a thing now. I use Skype. And with Skype, if somebody can't come in, that sort of thing, everyone has a smartphone. I've actually had Skype interviews with smartphones, right? Because we don't have a lot of time, things like this will actually aid us in not having to spend so much time, because somebody comes in for an interview, you got to go downstairs, shake their hand. How are you? Did you have any issues finding them? No. How was your weekend? With this, you can just start with, thank you so much, let's start with the resume, or let's start with the interview. Do testing. Testing is a nice quantitative way to measure somebody. So if there's specific tasks that you need them to do on a daily basis, create tests or scenarios for them actually to do it. You don't have to only ask questions in interview. Create tests and questionnaires, self-assessments before that to give you additional information, not just the resume and not just the interview, but give you additional information to make your choice. Create a structured interview. The same questions go, each person goes through the same questions in the same order, and you rank those questions. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to compare apples to oranges to plums, and you're going to go with your favorite fruit. But by having structured questions, ranking each person in each question, checking them off, and then at the end, you've interviewed 4 individuals. Individual 1 scored 35, individual 2 scored 40. You have some numbers to actually go with your decision. And if they end up being a bad hire, then you go back to your recruitment selection process and go, where did I fail in mismatching this person's jobs and qualities with what I was looking for? Interview tips. So for what are managers looking for? Be agreeable and very supportive as when you're interviewing. So my favorite interviewing skill is when somebody is interviewing, always be supportive and never be judgmental. Why did you leave your last job? My manager was a jerk. I had a manager that was a jerk too. Tell me more about your jerky manager, right? So by being open, they will provide you with a lot more information in the interview process than if you're I don't think it's appropriate for you to call your manager a jerk. One of my favorite questions too is, what didn't you include in your resume? You will be shocked. Another skill that I like to use is I like to close my book, put it off to the side, and said, this part of the interview is over. I didn't say that the interview is over, just this part, right? By closing that book and stop writing, all of a sudden people feel, oh, I can be a little bit more open as well. So that's a little interview skill. Allowing silence. The first person to, so if you ask a question, don't interrupt, don't probe, don't ask it another way. Allow the silence until the person speaks. And then this one, some people like it, some people don't. It's about, if you walk somebody to their car, don't judge them on the car, judge them what's inside the car. If it's a big mess and disorganized, chances are that's how their workstation is going to be as well, right? There's no scientific method yet. This is something I would like to, maybe as a PhD thesis, do, but some managers like doing this to see what kind of So whether they, it's beat up or whether it's a 25-year-old car, it doesn't matter. It's how it looks on the inside. Give realistic job interviews. So take them, walk them through what they're, not the best things about the job, but also the worst things about the job. I also like to plant people in my tour of the organization with specific questions and see how they interact. They ask the same candidate the same questions, so it's not different. And then I go back and say, because those people are going to have to work with those individuals. What did you think? What was your first reaction? Right? I don't give a lot of weight to those answers, but it's just another measure for me to make a decision. There was a candidate that I took through a tour that I thought was wonderful, and everybody hated. Odd, right? And in the end, the candidate I went with wasn't my first choice, but everyone that I took him through, really good, and turned out to be one of my best hires. Red flags, talking negatively, so this is what managers don't want to see in an interview, talking negatively about past employers. Declaring retirement. I have never met a person who has said, I want to retire here, who has actually retired, right? Or stayed with the company a really long time. I've never met a person who has said, I have never been late and I have never been sick, to actually have a perfect attendance record. They're usually, it's never happened before. I've never been late. I've never been sick. So that's our red flags for me. Old references. If you're providing me with references that are 25 years old, and you can't provide me at least with a coworker, supervisor, or somebody within your current organization, I understand about privacy, not wanting to give your hand that you're looking for work, but being unable to at least give me a peer in your organization that you feel that you've been able to, in confidence, say, can I use you as a reference, is a flag for me. Improperly dressed, asking for unreasonable accommodations. And now, I don't mean accommodations, but I need at least 3 months off during the summer. Might not get you the job right away. However, that being said, if you do have some vacations that are pre-planned, tell them in the interview. I have a wedding to attend to, my family is we booked this vacation. It's a lot easier to get that vacation approved prior to you getting hired than it is a week or two before saying, oh, by the way, I forgot I'm the best man at the wedding in Mexico, I have to go for 2 weeks. Counteroffers. If the salary is posted and the salary range is posted, I would say I've never met somebody who has countered offered that turned out to be a good fit for the organization. I have told you my range, my fair range, what I think is fair. Why did you apply to this position if you weren't satisfied with that range? For me, it automatically becomes a flag from the get-go. And these other things that you can also read. Reference checks, we sort of talked about verifying the resume, doing self-assessments. This is why I also like doing self-assessments, is I can go back to the references and they mark themselves as being organized 5 out of 5. Would you agree with that? So it gives you, with a self-assessment, it gives you additional questions that you can ask. One of the things that I always tell individuals is when you're doing an interview, make sure the person that person is going to be reporting to is in the interview process, and make sure that person gives the verbal job offer. How many of you, because it automatically sets that relationship. How many of you have been hired and then all of a sudden it's your first day and then you meet your supervisor? And your true boss in your own thinking will always be the person that offered you the job, that interviewed for your position. So make sure the person that is actually going to be their supervisor gives that phone call, hey, wanted to welcome you on the team. When do you want to start? We'll send you an employment offer, that sort of thing. But make sure that person that is going to be their direct supervisor is going to be the person making that first contact. Make sure you have employment offers. Both as a before they're starting. So these are all the benefits, these are all the conditions prior to you accepting, and an employment contract, which should just mirror your employment offer. And so things that you should, date started, wage, position, supervisor, expectations. We actually have 8 key core professional expectations we expect from our employees, and the initial saying, can you meet these 8 professional competencies? And they say yes. Benefit dates when they start, policy, we actually send in our employment handbook. There's no secret sauce in the employment handbook. Send in the employment handbook. Give them as much information about the organization before they start. When their vacation is, deductions, this is a hot topic in temporary foreign workers. We got caught with temporary foreign workers because we make our employees pay short-term and long-term disability. We have always made employees pay for long-term and short-term disabilities. The government said you're stealing from temporary foreign workers because you didn't make an agreement and didn't let them know that that's going to be a deduction. So any kind of deductions that you're going to make, just make sure, in case you ever do temporary foreign workers, or just as a nice note, the deductions for social club and everything like that, make sure that you tell them that they're on probation. The law says that if you don't say you're on probation, you're not on probation. So if you don't have an employment offer and it doesn't say you're on a 90-day probation, they're not on probation. They're a full-time employee, and you need to go with verbal, written termination in a reasonable amount of time, which, by the way, is not 3 months. And you may get in trouble. Dress code. How many people have showed up to work improperly dressed or overdressed for the first day because you had no idea what the expectations are? Let them know. This is a key one. Agreement of change. Tell them that they are getting this position for this amount and these are these responsibilities, but they're not guaranteed to always have that position, that compensation, that they understand that due to economic climate, changes in the restructuring, it avoids constructive dismissal. And expiry. Put a 1-week expiry on it. I've had people that try to sort of, well, I'm waiting for another job offer, or not get back to me after sort of 2 weeks and say, hey, I'd like the job now. And I'm like, I'm sorry. We gave you a 1-week deadline. You didn't get back to us. You didn't return our calls. Our offer is no longer valid. What do managers look for? They look for the right fit. Now, that might seem wrong, but imagine if I applied to a tattoo, parlor, and body modification clinic. Would you want somebody who is not tattooed or doesn't have any body modifications to be in, and doesn't believe in it to be a part of your organization? Chances you want somebody to have the right fit, the right look. People no longer hire the best, they hire the least amount of risk. And the least amount of risk is a person that is referred by another person from the organization. If somebody knows Bob, chances are Bob's going to get the job, even if he's less qualified, because he's less of a risk, because somebody has come forward and has said, I think Bob's pretty good. And if Bob's not pretty good, well, that person's never going to refer another candidate again. The right amount of enthusiasm. You don't want to be creepy overexcited. You want to be just the right amount of excited. And with orientations, you want to make the people feel welcomed. Give them some swag, a cup, a jacket. Introduce them to a team. Take them out for lunch on the first day. Just take them out for lunch, whether it's you and the supervisor, whether you pay for it or not, doesn't matter whether you get reimbursed, but take them out for lunch. It's a really nice gesture. Give them small tasks at the beginning. Make sure you are able to evaluate how they're progressing in their probationary period. Set expectations and explain and show a performance review. How many of you show your employees what they're going to be, their performance review that's going to happen in 3 months and a year? 2 organizations. How are they supposed to know what they're going to be marked on? Show them a performance review. Test their retention, have checklists. Make sure you check for clarity. Just so I know that I've explained it correctly, can you tell me what I want you to do? Not, do you understand? Because people are going to say, yep, I understand. Training. Training is a big issue here. So, may I please have a volunteer who is terrible at folding t-shirts? Aries, come on up. If you could stand here. Actually, stand here. Usually this is how we train people. You know how to fold a shirt? No. Your resume said that you knew how to fold a shirt? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Great, fold a shirt. I'll be back in 2 hours, check on you. What are you doing? I thought you said you knew how to fold a shirt. Hold on, let me call HR. HR, I need a new person, somebody who can fold a shirt. That's how we usually train. Perfect. So, then we almost do the right thing, and what we do is like, okay, so this is how we fold a shirt. I want you to pay attention. Okay, just do that, and I'll see you in 2 hours. And I go on my merry way. Right? And then come back and say, what are you doing? That's not the way I showed you. I thought I trained you. So, we'll swap this way. We're doing this all for the camera here. All right. So, the proper way to train somebody is to go from big picture to little picture back to big picture. I don't have time to go through all of it, but what we first do is we make sure that we flatten out the t-shirt. Then what we do is we pull both sides to give it a nice crease. That allows us for better grip. Then what we do is hand over on this side. So we crisscross. You go in the middle here, hand over here. And that just gives us halfway through and a better grip on it. We come around and touch corner to corner. We flop it out. We put it down. And now you have a folded shirt. 3 seconds, people. You can do this in 3 seconds. Now, you do this 3 times, each going from bigger picture, explaining the reasons why. We usually show people, but we don't tell them why. And people need to understand why they're doing a specific job and why it's important. So, you had a crash course. I didn't train you properly, but let's see if you can do it. Pressure's on. Fold it on the, perfect. You're folding a crease, hand over. Perfect. You're going around. You're going to now flop it out, and oh, so close. So close. There, perfect. That's how you, now, again, if I had a little bit more time, I would sort of go through it step by step each time, and you actually have the person explain each step and why they're doing it. And by the end, it takes a little bit more time to train an individual, but they will have 80% more retention by doing it this way than you just showing them. There's a legal component to training as well. It's not just enough to say, yeah, they're trained. You need proof of, are they adequately qualified to do the position? Do they have the training, and do they have enough experience? Giving somebody just a forklift license that says that they can drive a forklift is not good enough. You need to prove that they're qualified and experienced to drive that forklift. So there's a legal component to training. The other issue with training is only 10% of us are actual auditory learners, meaning that if you listen to instructions, you can actually follow those instructions. 70% of us are kinesthetic. We actually have to do the job in order for us to understand it. We explain it this way, and then we get frustrated that the person, I thought you were experienced, I thought you were trained. You need to start training people kinesthetically, showing them the job, explaining them why they're doing a certain task, why it's important to their organization. 90 days is critical for first impressions. Make sure senior management goes down and introduces themselves. Just as a hello. It makes a big impression when the CEO, the president, meets a new employee. Now, it might not be possible depending on the size of your organization, but the most senior person in that organization where it's sort of feasible to do it, it should be, an effort should be made on that. What managers want, ask lots of questions and take notes. Don't just go, yep, yep, yep. Take notes as you're being trained. Refer to them so you don't have to ask so many questions later on. We want you to be on time and allow for extra time when you first are starting out because of that training requirement. Put your cell phones away. No one is going to text you an emergency. No one's going to go, help, I'm drowning, come get me. Retention. Think of the most happiest employee in your organization. The go-lucky, bubbly person in your organization, are they the most productive person? No. So why do we always say engagement results in productivity? All that engagement does is keeps retention. Why? Wouldn't you want to be in an organization that you're always happy and don't have to do a lot of work in? So if you want productivity, you need to motivate individuals. You can't motivate an individual. You can only provide an environment where they can self-motivate themselves. You can't beat motivation into an individual. Beatings will continue until morale improves. You can only create an environment of motivation. Chances are, if people are leaving your organization, they're leaving your managers. Your managers need to be trained adequately, because how many of you say, my company doesn't care about me? Or you've heard that phrase, my company, you know what? It's true. That's like saying, my car doesn't take safety into account. Or my car doesn't care about my safety. It can't. But the people, the managers, the co-workers, human resources, your peers, your supervisors, those are the people that matter. Those are the people that care. And what people should be saying is, my manager doesn't care about me. My supervisor doesn't care about me, not my company. And by saying my company, you make it into this sort of abstract thing that you can't address. You can address a manager not caring about their employees. There are 12 motivational factors that will actually create an environment of motivation. The most expensive is the right equipment. Making sure, we used to have computers that you would come in, log in, go for coffee for 15 minutes, and if you timed it right, by the time you came back 15 minutes later, your workstation was ready to boot up. Right? What a motivational killer that was. Right? It didn't create any fire in somebody's belly. Clear expectations, everyone knowing what their job is. Encourage development. Having your supervisor care about your well-being. Now, you don't need to get huge into personal lives and that sort of thing. We're not counselors, that's what EAP programs are for. But having at least some empathy. Recognition. If you pay somebody fair market value and you show them recognition, you don't need an expensive points system where they can buy a pillow or buy a mug or whatever it may be for the good job they're doing. I don't believe in recognition point systems. Opportunity to perform. Understanding the importance of their position, giving opinions and feedback, ability to learn and grow, continuous review progress. It's better for you to sit down with your people once a week and have a candid, what are some of your challenges? What are some of the things that I can help you with for you to perform better? Than sitting with an annual review. You still need to, because we need to document it, but have weekly, bi-weekly meetings will get a lot more out of your people than that one-year performance review. Team trust. If there's no trust in your team, you're not going to get it. And a commitment to quality. If you let bad performance slide, or if you turn the other way, it's brutal for your company morale and for your department morale. This is done at the department group level. This isn't done at the high-end level. You need executive support, but this is done within your work groups. This is done within your departments. This is what your supervisors and managers need to do, not what your CEO and CFO need. They need to provide that support, but this is done at the department level. So what managers want? Leave your personal lives at home, right? We are now facing an epidemic of duty to accommodate, because people feel it's their absolute right, if they're having personal issues, that the job comes second and their personal lives come first. That's true. However, you have to take into account your department's productivity. Being on time and ready to work, doing a job well done, being a problem solver. If a piece of equipment is broken, chances are, if you say, that printer's broken, nothing's going to get done. But if you say, hey, that printer's broken, there's that same printer's on sale at Staples, on my way to work, I can go pick it up and just get reimbursed the next day for it. Can I do that? Chances are that printer is going to be replaced much sooner than you just going, that printer's broken, fix it for me. Improve engagement. Culture, relationships, and opportunities, you have to have the right fit for your organization in order to have engagement. communication and transparency are key, including employees in decision making, allowing for tribal knowledge that serve information, who is the subject matter expert in your organization for this. That's not in the employee handbook. Or don't talk to Bill about raises on Thursdays. That's not in the employee handbook, right? That's tribal knowledge. Consistent feedback, and you have to pay your people fairly. That's number one key. All of this that you're doing, if you are paying under market, doesn't matter if you have a swimming pool. It doesn't matter if you have billiards or an Xbox in your lounge or if you provide free food. You need to make sure you're paying people fairly. Not the top wage, but fairly. Retention killers, deficient communications, insufficient encouragement, inadequate rewards, too much team recognition. You need to provide some individual recognition. And limited or stretched resources. If you're pushing your people to the max all the time, they're going to burn out. So your plan is to improve your recruitment and retention process to be a little bit more structured. Have your assistants, supervisors, managers trained and understand the value that their people and the department brings to the organization. Provide training and development for management so they are able to have that empathy for, at least fake the empathy for their employees. And assist in creating meaningful tools so that you can do an ROE, a return on the investment of the things that you're doing. So I have a activity that you're going to do just on your own time because I'm out of time. But what I want you to do is, out of those 12 motivators, what's something in your organization that you can do right now out of those 12 that's going to cost the least amount, be the least amount of effort, and do it in the quickest amount of time? What's something that you can do in your organization right now that's not going to cost you much, not a lot of effort, not a lot of time, but it's going to make a big, drastic change in your organization? So I'll give you 2 minutes to sort of do that. Do I say thank you very much? No. Thank you very much. And I will now go over there. I never know how to end these things.
So, a lot of organizations in the room have as part of their mandate to place their clients in employment positions. In many cases, there is a requirement to accommodate, whether it be physical disability, mental disability, language, what have you. Looking at everything that you shared with us from an accommodation, an unreasonable accommodation perspective, how can the organizations balance the need to place well, but coach their clients, and at the same time, be cognizant of a company's requirement around limited accommodation?
Right, and so where I see a big issue that organizations, when they try to pitch the idea, is that they try to pitch it as it's the right thing to do, it's the moral thing to do, it's the ethical, it's the community thing to do. But what they forget to mention is, what value will that individual bring to the organization? How will that individual be able to fix a problem, be a niche solution to that organization? So when an organization is pitching or providing a candidate, being able to sell that candidate of how that candidate is going to bring value to the organization, rather than saying this is the right thing to do, this is the moral thing to do.
Adam, one of the things you said was managers want the personal lives left at home and minimal socializing, yet you want people to get along with others, and you want the culture and relationships and opportunities to be there, and you want tribal knowledge sharing. So if you want minimal socializing and personal lives left at home and no, how does that happen?
Right. And so it's always the extremes, right? And so how many of you know an individual in your company that you don't ask how their day is going because they'll tell you, right? That's what I'm talking about, right? So with the minimal socialization, I don't mean, hello, Janice. What I mean is like, you wouldn't believe how smashed I got last weekend. Like, I must have had 13, 15 beers. That's what I'm talking about, right? Oversharing. That's what Facebook's for, right? So that's finding the right balance of being professional, approachable, sharing, I call it shallow sharing, where it's just enough to create a bond with an individual, but it's not enough that you're like, I really shouldn't know about this individual. Finding that balance. And are you?
If I can add
Yeah.
to that, another great tip is when you have those chatty Cathy's that they come into your office, you know they're going to not stop talking. A great tip to, you don't want to come across as rude. The great thing to do is to stand up and say, I'm just heading off to the photocopier, or I'm going to meet Susan. Let's walk and talk, right? Because then you know you've bought yourself maybe a minute with this person, as opposed to 45 minutes hearing about their daughter's wedding on the weekend. So you can still say, oh, so wonderful, I'm so glad you had a wonderful day, that sounds like a beautiful wedding, let's catch up later, and then you're off, right? So you're still having that interaction, but you're in control of how long an interaction goes for, because you never want to come across as cold and that you don't care, because that's what it can often come across as, especially for the chat packets, right?
I have worked in a variety of not-for-profit organizations, and the one, I would say, theme that I have noticed across board is this whole notion of engagement and productivity. And I think within the sector, people are accustomed to being paid less than market wages, perhaps with, not as great resources or, not current equipment, et cetera. And so there's been a culture of acceptance of perhaps more conversation, higher levels of engagement to retain staff, to create a community where productivity really, I think, becomes second, the second issue. And so do you have any effective strategies to balance out or encourage increased levels of productivity, while also, I would say, kind of honoring or somehow safeguarding this notion of a higher level of community, because those working in not-for-profit sectors are often putting up with, less than great salaries, offices, et cetera?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're speaking to, I think, has to do with intrinsic motivation. And a lot of people choose to work in the nonprofit or healthcare, these different worlds, because they believe that what they do makes a difference, right? So I think it's really important to speak to that on an organizational level. Make sure that they're aware that what they're doing is making a difference, right? Because if they understand, they walked into this world knowing they're not going to be paid $150,000 a year, and they're not going to get all these great benefits, because they're limited. We're limited by grants, right, and the funding that we have available to us. So they're walking in knowing that they're choosing this path because they really believe that what they do will make a difference. The biggest mistake we can make as an organization is in discrediting that, right? So not letting them have a say, not letting them feel that they have responsibility in their position, that they are making a difference in that position. We want to really encourage that world, because that's how we increase productivity, right? Does that kind of speak to that? Yeah.
And when I sort of say fair or a fair compensation, it's a two-way. What the organization thinks it's fair and what the employee thinks it's fair. And so it's not the top dollar, it's a fair wage. And the living wage in Calgary is $17 an hour plus benefits. That's $35,000 per year. I think that's within the range of a nonprofit, that it's fair, that at least allows a livable salary within Calgary.
They say when it comes to salary, you should pay people enough money to get the issue of money off the table. That's it, right? So I think that speaks exactly to that. So pay them enough that it's no longer an issue. You don't need to keep talking about these little perks and these little, as Adam correctly said in his presentation, a point system where they can get an extra few mugs and things. That doesn't make a difference to these employees. Pay them enough to get money off the table, and then speak to the intrinsic motivators, right? Make sure that you're checking in, just as Adam said, weekly, bi-weekly, having those conversations, making sure that employee is feeling valued, right? Our role in especially as human resources, is to make sure that as an organization, we are giving this employee everything we can so that they can be the best employee that they can be, right? Are we doing that, right?
And if I could add, being in a not-for-profit does not mean that we do not manage like a business. And I think that too long has the concept been, we're a not-for-profit, we're here to help and do good, and so we don't march by the same sound of the drum that businesses do. If we want to be around to help, we need to march by the same sound of the drum. So absolutely great points. Janice, quick one. Do you actually need to wait to be in a restructuring mode to do an organizational analysis?
No. As I said when I was on the floor there, I think that you should always be looking at how are things working. As we talked about, sometimes you look at a situation that's not working and say, oh, it's a performance issue, or it's not, the person needs more training. But to always take yourself back in your toolbox at least to say, is the job still structured the way it should be? Is the workflow still working the way it should be, or has something changed? Before you go to the potentially more disruptive performance, training, termination, look first at whether the structure is working. And that's something that you should be doing on an ongoing basis.
And I think that this is an important message for us to take back to our organizations. We don't need to wait to be in a restructuring mode in order to look if the right people are doing the right thing at the right time, including ourselves. So like everything else, we're always pressed for time. There is always much more that could be said and could be shared. This is session 1 of a series. Just as a reminder that in November, and I believe October, I'm sorry, I'm in a rush for Christmas. In October, our next session is going to be retention strategies. So you're going to be receiving, obviously, the communication around that.
So as Nicole had mentioned, the next session is actually on October 20th. Registration is open for the whole HR in a Box series. It's available through CCVO's website.